بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. Topic that we're covering today is to do with regarding the signs of the Day of Judgment. The signs of the Day of Judgment. And we talked about regarding some of the benefits of learning about the signs of the Day of Judgment. We mentioned regarding its symptoms. So example, if you have a certain disease, you have high cholesterol, you have high blood pressure, what happens? You change your diet accordingly, because you see the symptoms, then you try to stay away from what could happen in the future, which can be harmful. In the same way, these are the signs of Qiyamah, to try and prepare you for that time of Qiyamah. So then a person is well prepared physically, mentally and spiritually as well. So the categorization of hadith which I mentioned, or the types, the signs which we're going to do it inshallah, is we have certain types of minor sins first, and then we'll cover the major sins afterwards. So they have the minor signs and the major signs. And then you have certain signs which come all at once, or it's only once that it comes, and then some which has come over a period of time. Example, the Isa will come down. It's a one-off that he will come down once. And then if I say corruption will be rife at that time, that means there's continuous amount of corruption is happening. So those are the different types. So we're going to cover some of the hadith at the beginning, introduction towards the minor signs inshallah, and then we'll continue from there. Hadith mentions that there will be 10 major signs, which means there will be other signs which will be minor. So we have 10 major signs. What are those? We will come up to the different types, because some have differed, whether these are the 10, or this is the 11th one, or this is 9th one, and so forth. We'll come up to the different parts. So this hadith is mentioned in Muslim, and he mentions that the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala an were discussing when Qiyamah will come to them. So they're in a gathering, having a little chat amongst themselves, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam walks by, and he sees them discussing regarding this topic of Qiyamah, or the signs of Qiyamah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Qiyamah will not happen until you see its 10 signs. It will not happen until you see its 10 signs. What are these 10 signs? He goes on to explain them. Now he doesn't mention these in order. In this hadith, it does not mention the order in this hadith. Other ones it's different. But in this hadith, I'm going to mention it, just any 10 in a different order. Number 1, he mentioned here is dukhan. Dukhan is like a fog, like a smoky kind of fog. Smog, like the smoke, yeah. That will happen. Once that happens, these are one-off things, yeah. Once it happens, then these are one of the 10 signs. Then he mentions Dajjal. So this is the coming of Dajjal. The third thing, Dabba. Dabba means, you know what Dabba means?
Thing like which you ride, like donkey
beast.
Or horse.
So this will be a specific beast. Good. Dabba means general creature, animal. So Dabba here means the specific beast that will come from the ground and then come out, and then he'll have his. We'll come up to more explanations later. So third is the beast. Fourth, he mentions here, it's not in order, yeah? Rising of the sun from the west. So the moment we know the sun rises from the east, and then it sets in the west. So what happens, it goes like this, and it sets in the west. So it'll come back, nighttime will come back to day, and then go back like this. So something like this will happen as well. The coming of Isa alayhi salam, 5 of them. So number 6, Yajuj Ma'juj. So that will also happen. And he mentioned 7, 8 and 9. In this hadith, he mentioned 7, 8 and 9. There will be 3 major earthquakes. So he mentions 3 major earthquakes. 1, number 2, number 3. And these will be 7, 8 and 9. And the lastly, number 10, is the blazing fire. And that will be that the blazing fire will be from Yemen. It will take all the people from Yemen towards the Sham area, Damascus area. And then everyone will be gathered for the plains of resurrection there. So this is the 10 that he's mentioned. There are others, and there's more explanation that will come later on. And they will happen one after another, just like a domino effect. 1, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, straight after one another. That's how the major signs of Qiyamah. So first of these 10 first of the 10 is the coming of Isa alayhi salam, and the last of the minor signs, or the first of the major signs, which will come to more explanation, is obviously Mahdi, and the coming of Mahdi as well. This all has been mentioned in Kitab al-Fitan. There's many kitabs regarding this. But these are all the major signs, and there'll be more explanation, the different types of major signs as well, regarding, some have mentioned regarding a wind that will come and then give death towards all of the Muslims, and only the remaining disbelievers will be on the earth. There will also be mentioned that there will be certain types of earthquakes is one of them, one is landslides, one is the different kind of natural disasters that will happen, and that will also be amongst them, and there'll be a few others which have been mentioned. But before we even go to the major, we're going to go to the minor, and we start off with the minor. So we're going to have an introduction towards the minor, and then maybe we'll do a few of the minor sins, minor signs of the Day of Judgment. So we have example, the first minor sign of the Day of Judgment. Anyone know the first one? I mentioned this yesterday as well. Yes, the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the first sign that we know that Qiyamah is close, because how long is the history of this dunya? Anyone know how long the history of this dunya is? No one actually knows. We've got some information of maybe a few thousand years, 3, 4, 5,000 years, maybe 6,000 years. We've got information of maybe some sort of that much amount of years. But how long is the actual history and when it dates back towards? No one actually knows. Some say it's only 10,000, some say no, it's 100,000, some say no, it goes to millions. Allah alam, Allah knows best, but it could be any of them, to be honest. People are just now trying to put 2 and 2 together and have an opinion on this, an interpretation of this, and they work them out themselves. But now imagine, let's just say 100,000. Imagine 100,000, and now we always come. Now we're only 1,500 years old, right? So now 100,000 years have gone past almost, and now the coming and the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes. So now it's close, right? So the Qiyamah will be quite close. It's only compared to, it's only 1% left. Example. So it's not long to go. There's not long to go. Even though 1,500 years almost done, it's not long to go. Meaning there's only a few years comparatively to the history of the world. So this is the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he mentions here that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I was sent at the same time as Qiyamah." Meaning he was sent at the same time as Qiyamah was sent. Kahatain. It was like the joining of these 2 fingers. So that's close, right? It's quite close between the 2 fingers. So this is how close Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent, and Qiyamah will come at the same time. And he goes, "I just beat it." Meaning my sending, I just beat it when it coming to him being sent and Qiyamah being sent at the same time. This is one of them. This is the first one. The next one, and this is slightly people don't know much about, and this is mentioned here. This is a minor sign, as mentioned in Hadith, that the Sahaba will fight each other. The Sahaba will fight each other, meaning they'll continue fighting until the Day of Judgment. It started there, and the Muslims will continue fighting until the Day of Judgment. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an was listening to this hadith. He was worried about this because he thought, you know what, am I going to fight with the other Sahaba? Am I going to, this is my brothers in Islam, how can I do this? So Huzaifa radiallahu ta'ala, he was the secret keeper. He was the one that got all the secrets of Rasulullah sallam, and he knows about fitna the most, and he knows about all the trials and tribulations that's going to happen in the future. He knows the most. So Huzaifa goes, don't worry, Umar, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen in your lifetime. Because this fitna that's going to come, Umar says, this fitna is going to come. Is it going to be, are they going to break through the door, or is the door going to be unlocked for us? So Huzaifa goes, it's going to be the door will be broken down. The meaning behind this meaning is that when regarding the fitna that's going to happen, it's going to be something which is violent. Something which is going to be violent, and something which is not going to be nice to try and narrate and so forth. So this happened after Umar radiallahu ta'ala passed away. Was now the Sahaba actually the fitna of the time of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala and so forth. His time was when, that era was when all of the fitna started, and the Sahaba started to, and there was fights between the Sahaba. This was the first time where the Sahaba started to fight each other, physically fighting, and it's not the best part of history, but this is what had happened. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned this very important part. This hadith is mentioned in Muslim, and he says that he asked for 3 things. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for 3 things. Number 1, because I was granted 2 of those, but the 3rd one I wasn't granted. So 2 of them I was granted. What are those 2 things? I asked that never should an external force eliminate my ummah. No one should come and now defeat my ummah. No one will come and destroy his ummah in its entirety. Meaning small parts might get destroyed. Small parts, we might lose a battle here and there. So, but my whole ummah will never be destroyed. Just like example, Lut alayhi salam, Salih alayhi salam, Huda alayhi salam, their whole community got destroyed. The whole community of Rasulullah, the nation of Rasulullah will never ever be destroyed in its entirety. Number one, this dua got accepted. Number two, a disease won't eliminate my ummah. So a disease won't come just like a disease comes and it takes away the whole. So that won't happen. That's the second one that was being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third one was that never my ummah should fight one another. And this is the third one, and that didn't get accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where you find, number one, let's just talk about ourselves. So ourselves in itself, we fight quite a bit. Obviously Muslims fight Muslims. Muslims kill Muslims, unfortunately. And this is how the reality is. The Muslims are killing Muslims. We're not just talking about fighting as arguing. Arguing is just different. We're talking about fighting and killing. So fighting and killing. And we find that many incidents in the past, we will find good Muslims on both sides. But what happens? They do get into arguments and they're human beings. In the same way, Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum were also human beings. And there were certain disagreements amongst themselves. And it caused some fighting and it caused some issues. And then there was a few battles that happened between Muslims, and you find that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala is on one side, and the likes of Ali radiallahu on the other side. And it's something which is huge, but this happened, and unfortunately this happened, and this is something that it was fighting amongst the Sahaba. So this is where you find the martyrdom of Umar radiallahu ta'ala. And so this is a prediction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this happened about 15 to 20, let's say 20 years after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 20 years after this prediction and this prophecy happened, which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the Sahaba were asking, and there was a few battles. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an and Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, they were known, or them two were known to be shuhada. They died as shaheed. They died as martyrs in Islam. So this was also predicted by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. There's a very famous hadith. This hadith is in Muslim. It said that once Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala an, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an. These four people were climbing Mount Uhud, and the mountain began to tremble. It began to shake. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam calmed down the mountain. He calmed down the mountain, saying, "Calm down, O Uhud, Ya Uhud. You only have a Nabi on you, a Siddiq on you, and you have two Shuhada, Shahidain. You have two. So this is already he's telling you that number one, I am a Nabi. Number two, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and who's left? Umar and Uthman. You have Shahidain. You have two people that's going to be Shaheed. So already he's prophesying, he's predicting in the future that this will happen. So now both of them obviously die as a Shaheed. And this also brings about another subject, that he's talking to a who? He's talking to a mountain. He's talking to a mountain. Many times in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was talking to certain inanimate objects and they spoke back to him. Very famous hadith when a rock, he was picking up a rock, Rasulullah, and all the Sahaba heard the rock say, I believe it was Subhanallah. I believe it was Subhanallah. I could be mistaken, or he was returning the salam. One of the two. But the rock spoke back, and the Sahaba heard the rock saying this adhkar. So these, in its own way, these walls around us, the trees and all of the plants and all of the creation of Allah have some sort of ability to communicate, which Allah knows best. And he mentioned inside of the Quran, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. That every single thing in this dunya makes a tasbih, but we don't understand its tasbih. They're making the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't understand it. So does those things deserve respect or not? It deserves respect. So just like the trees outside, just like the environment outside, just like anything, it deserves respect, and then we should respect these things. And a very famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the mimbar of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the mimbar. So they had the mimbar, and originally the mimbar was this, the tree, the small little tree, and then he used to lean on the tree, and then he used to give the khutbah while leaning on the tree. And then what happened? The tree got chopped down, and part of it got chopped down and so forth, and there was like the trunk left here. So now what happened? They changed the mimbar to something which is more, built, and now he moved over there. So while he's giving the khutbah onto the mimbar, and now this tree is there, and what happens? What does the tree start to do? Anyone know? He starts to cry. He starts to cry. The tree is crying. Everyone there in khutbah is listening to the tree crying. Everyone's listening to the tree is crying. The tree is giving some noise out and it's weeping. So it's a very famous story regarding this. So then the tree is also having some, it's got communication, it's got some voice, it's got some feeling, it's got something there. Allah knows best, Allah knows how. We don't understand it, we don't fathom it, but Allah knows. So this is then obviously Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came there and then came down and comforted the tree. He said, don't worry, and so forth. And then he went back and then gave the khutbah and so forth. So here there's also a side point where now you find inanimate objects also having a certain thing. So here the prediction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the minor signs was that Umar radiallahu ta'ala an and Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an will both be shaheed. So when you're looking into their lives, Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, while in the Fajr Salah, he was leading the Salah, and one Majusi came round and then had a poisoned tipped dagger and then stabbed Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and then he didn't die straight away, he died after a few days. But then what happened is that the person tried to escape, and then obviously when you look at the rows of the saf of the Salah, these people started to, they saw somebody coming up. So what did they do? You can allow the person to go past in your saf? No, they went together and they made like a line so he couldn't go past. But obviously he squirmed through, and then he got towards, like, let's say a corner, and they tried to escape. So then they obviously saw what's happening, then they broke their salah and they went to this person. And how did they get him? They knew he had a dagger. So what would you do? They chucked a cloth over him. And then they battered him, basically, They got and they grabbed him, and then they took him away and so forth. And this is how they dealt with. But then Umar radiallahu ta'ala an was there and he got stabbed. What happened after that? They took him and they looked after him and so forth. At the end life of Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he obviously passed. He was passing away. In his last few days later, maybe a day or two later, 3 days later, he was very severely sick and he was about to pass away. So what did he want to do? He was in his bed, and then he went towards the floor and he put his head in sajda, and he died in that state. He put his head into sujood and he died in that state as a martyr. And he wanted, and he had the very famous dua, that I want to die as a martyr, but I want to die as a martyr in the city of Medina. So everyone's thinking, how can you even be a martyr when you're in the Medina? You go out to be a martyr. You go out to the lands of this and lands of that and fight in the path of Allah to be a martyr. So what do you mean? But this is now this dua got accepted because now he's a martyr inside of the blessed city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, and there's a tragic story of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, when eventually they surrounded his house, and then he didn't give the order to no one to block him and defend him. He said, let it happen. And then he was reading Quran while the people smashed through the door, and then they martyred Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, and even the blood drops went onto the Quran in itself. And this happened, and he was martyred also in his own house, which was next to the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's masjid as well. This is the martyrdom of Umar and Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an. What time does it finish today?
4 minutes.
4 minutes, 2 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay, inshallah. So these are the minor signs. I've only mentioned 2 or 3. I will continue more. But here in this next few days, you'll find a lot of history. I'll cover a lot of different types of history, a lot of tarikh, a lot of different points, which is very interesting and fascinating, inshallah. And hopefully will be beneficial for all of us, inshallah. But I mentioned some minor signs. We'll continue these minor signs, and then we'll go on to the major signs in the future, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make a dua, inshallah, before we sit down, inshallah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. اللهم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكون من الخاسرين. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اللهم حاسبني حسابا يسيرا. اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا والشفاء من كل داء. اللهم إني أسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إني أسألك الجنة وأعوذ بك من النار. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار. يا الله يا حي يا قيوم يا ذا الجلال والإكرام برحمتك نستغيث. Ya Allah, accept our du'as today. Ya Allah, accept our fasting. Ya Allah, accept our salahs, accept our du'as, accept all our adhkar. Ya Allah, whatever we're doing, Ya Allah, we want acceptance from you. Ya Allah, forgive all our sins. Ya Allah, every single night and every single morning, you free people from the Jahannam. Ya Allah, make us amongst those lists. That list that is free from Jahannam. Ya Allah, make it such that it happens, if it's not happened already in this Ramadan. Ya Allah, make it such that you accept all of our actions, forgive all of our sins, and then guide us to the right path. Ya Allah, make it such that now, whatever we are doing, Ya Allah, be pleased with us. Subhanallah wa hamdi, subhanallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ameen. Inshallah, everyone make their ways towards the istikhara, inshallah.
So much traffic on Greenford Road, it took me half an hour to get there.
That's why I just come from Asr and I stay till the end of the run.
I mean, I went on so much.
What's the present?